Question: should I leave 1 to 2 dB true peak headroom in my limiter for mastering? In my opinion, no. That misunderstands the difference between peak and true peak. Now, back in the day before true peak came into vogue, we just looked at normal peak values. So let's say I had a square wave and I normalize it to 0 dB full scale. It looks like it fits in the allotted space on our screen, but when we play it back, it might actually clip. It probably will clip, because DACs have a low pass filter in there. It's called a reconstructive filter, which is necessary, and I'm not going to explain why that's necessary. It's just there. And then what happens is the waveform changes, and it will actually, instead of one sample there at 0 dB full scale and one sample there at 0 dB full scale, the actual analog wave is going to exceed that, going to go higher, it's going to go louder. So it's actually going to go, instead of in a digital domain, everything is like 0 or minus whatever, it's actually going to go plus, it's going to go positive, it's going to clip, it's going to go over what it's supposed to do. In the analog stage, on a low quality digital to analog converter, isn't able to cope with that. It's going to distort, and in the worst possible case, on a really low quality unit, it's going to send out a short burst of noise even, and that's not something that we want. We want to avoid that. How do you avoid that? By using true peak. That's why true peak came along, because it oversamples the signal so that we can see the peaks between the samples, the intersample peaks. And if we're taking that into account, we're doing the job correctly. If our limiter is a true peak limiter, we're already taking that into account. So we don't need to leave additional headroom after we've already taken that into account. The thing that we're trying to avoid, we've already avoided it. We don't need to then double avoid it by leaving even more margin. That doesn't make much sense. And in the context of modern mastering electronic music, if I start sending my clients stuff with like 3 dB true peak headroom, they're going to be like, oh, you sent me the wrong file. Can you send me the proper master, please? It would just be so absurd that they wouldn't think that, they would think it was a mistake. And so the only people doing that are like hi-fi jazz audiophile crowds. No one in actual regular electronic modern music is leaving 2-3 dB true peak limiter margin. It's absurd. And so I wouldn't recommend doing that at all. I just recommend using a true peak limiter, because if it's 0 dB true peak, you've already taken that into consideration. It's already correct. The only problem is if you're going to then convert that into 64 kilobit MP3 or something, it's going to have a whole bunch of overs. But if you're going to nuke the audio quality, then it doesn't matter about intersample peaks anyway. So in my personal opinion, no, that's not necessary. And people who say that you need to do it are normally streaming services or people who don't know what they're talking about, and they're confusing peak with true peak.